Hatch,
Here.
Commissioner Knight, who said she's not going to be here today, Commissioner Smith,
Here.
and Commissioner Tellez.
Here.
A quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We are hosting this meeting in Tampa and by webinar and via phone, as you know. It's been held in conjunction with the Professional Development Workshop, which is hosted by FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, University of South Florida Center for Urban Transportation Research, also known as Cutter, and the Florida Public Transportation Association. So we want to thank everyone for assisting us with procuring the facilities, the room, and all those sorts of things. With that, as you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. With that, let's go over some general introductions and some meeting rules. As many of you know, the Florida legislature passed a bill this year that changed the composition of the membership of this commission. Today, we are pleased to announce 4 new members, 4 new commissioners who are representing state agencies that are serving various segments of the TD population. And so I would like to do some introductions, if folks can introduce themselves. First of all, I'd like to ask Commissioner Hatch to introduce herself.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Taylor Hatch. I am so honored and thankful to the governor for appointing me as a director for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. I think that we at the agency have a very sacred mission to serve a very sacred population of Floridians. We work really hard to make sure that we are delivering and supporting individuals with disabilities, helping to support their families and living and learning, working within their communities by creating multiple pathways to possibilities. What we hear from the families and the people that we serve are that they, by and large, any conversation or any service delivery transactions that we're having, we hear, I'm really trying to focus on goals that relate to skills for independence, community integration, and employment. And inevitably where that leads are what are the supportive services and resources that we as an agency can help to activate, either connect or help navigate for that individual or their family. And as a part of a lot of those conversations, as David and I have chatted about in the past, transportation comes up, right? And so we're really excited to be a part of the conversation today, really honored. We are absolutely committed to serving the people that we have the honor of and all Floridians. And so thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Certainly look forward to the discussion and appreciate the partnership.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Doyle, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Robert Doyle. I'm the director for the Division of Blind Services, and really honored to have an opportunity to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David, as well for our inclusion on the Commission for Transportation Disabled. I've been serving as Director of Blind Services for a little under 11 years now here in the state of Florida. And as Commissioner Hatch, Director Hatch has mentioned, transportation is a primary need. We just recently had a comprehensive statewide needs assessment, and then, believe it or not, transportation was a challenge. One of the areas of challenge for the consumers that we serve. As an agency, we serve individuals from birth to old age, from blind babies and children, transition programs. If you've ever stopped at a rest area, you were frequenting a business run by a blind operator. We also serve seniors. We have a Braille and Talking Book library as well in Daytona Beach. And so, again, we have the privilege of serving folks throughout the life cycle and making sure that they have the tools and supports that they need to be successful. And again, we're really thrilled to be here today and looking to learn and then also to contribute where we can on this commission as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle. Commissioner Carter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Krista Carter. I've actually been with the commission in a different capacity as an advisor since 2019. I work with the senior population. I'm a bureau chief at Department of Elder Affairs, Elder Rights, and it's our mission to assist seniors in living well and aging well in communities of their choice. And a lot of that has to do with transportation, being able to get and access transportation to doctor's appointments, employment, or just going to the grocery store. So I'm really happy to be here and I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you. You're welcome. And now your vote counts. See?
It's always
See how
counting.
things move along. So with that, Commissioner Smith.
Good afternoon. Yes, I am Melissa Smith. Happy to be here representing the Florida Department of Transportation and honored to be a part of this conversation moving forward, echoing the comments from the other new commissioners as well too. The transportation needs across Florida and making sure that we can be there as part of this too to serve all of our communities, all of our individuals to move the traveling public efficiently as we do that. So we're excited here to be a part of it, to continue to be a partner with the commission and now as a sitting member of it. So looking forward to the continuing conversations and how we can help.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Gray, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christine Gray. I live in Brevard County. I have a disability. I'm a transportation user. I've been on the commission since 2019. Actually, in my career has actually, I guess, started in advocacy and transportation advocacy for the fact that I cannot drive. And so that kind of became a little bit more complicated when I had a son without a disability. And so being able to go places with him has become an obstacle for us. So I'm happy to be here on the commission to share my input and help make a difference. Everybody has pretty much mirrored the importance of transportation for everyone, including people with disabilities. So I'm always pleased to be on the commission. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Barrios.
Hi, this is Lillian Barrios. I'm from Leon County. I am also on the commission from the perspective of a user. I've been on the commission for a little over 2 years now, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Tellez.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Commissioner Tellez, and I actually have been with the commission since 2016. I started back then as an RN and working in HR at Baptist Health South Florida, and I was very interested in this commission because I had a program there called Aspire, and what we did is we hired persons with disabilities, and we were having so many different difficulties with transportation, it became a deterrent. So that's one of my biggest interests. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Tellez. Myself, Phil Stevens, live in Tampa, Florida, USF alumni. Go Bulls. Go Bulls. Have been in the transportation industry for 30-something years. Started my career actually with Florida DOT, Commissioner Smith, as a construction inspector out of getting out of the military. So my roots are there. And have been in the transportation industry ever since in the U.S., primarily in Florida. What got me involved in the transportation disadvantaged community is my son, who is now 24, was born with cerebral palsy, and so he's in a wheelchair. And so I've served on this commission, the Developmental Disabilities Commission in 3 different states as I moved around, those sorts of things. So very much echo the comments that transportation is the tie that binds all of life. And so we are trying to provide solutions beyond the academic side of just thinking of solutions, but actually providing real solutions to our transportation disadvantaged population. So welcome to the new commissioners, and thank you for your commitment to this team as we move forward. So looking forward to a lot of great things to be done. We're going to hit it fast and furious this summer, so just hang on, and you'll be fine. So let's discuss a few meeting rules for those participating by web or by phone. We ask that you mute if you're not speaking, of course. between conversations to cut down some of the background noise. This is a reminder, this is a public meeting and therefore operates under Florida's Government in the Sunshine Act. It is being recorded, and that includes all verbal, written, and texts. For example, the chat box, feedback. Everything is being logged in the meeting minutes. We advise commissioners to remember that on the webinar to not communicate privately in any way, including the chat box with other board members, in order to ensure that these discussions remain compliant with the Sunshine Act. For the public comment segments, we'll follow our usual format. The first public comment segment is intended for agenda items only. So please limit the first segment to agenda items only. We will have a second public comment section during which you can talk about any topic in the second one, and we'll give you plenty of time to do that. We have asked webinar participants intending to speak to submit a public comment form prior to this meeting. For the folks that are live in Tampa wishing to speak, please provide your comment form to one of the staff members. With that, we will move to the first, there you go, thank you, the first public comment section. Now I'll call on any speakers who submitted a public comment form to Commissioner Darm, Executive Director Darm prior to today's meeting. As mentioned, please focus your comments during this segment to the agenda. We are limiting you to 5 minutes per speaker. We'll give you a 1-minute warning if need to be. Please introduce yourself, your name, if you represent a specific organization, and if you would, please release your county of residence. So with that, Director Darm, do we have any public comments forms submitted in advance?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one with Janice Ancrum from Nassau County's Council on Aging. Submitted a public comment card. I believe she is on the webinar side.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice Ancrum. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, my name is Janice Ancrum. I'm the president and CEO of the Nassau County Council on Aging. I'd like to thank you all for entrusting the Nassau County Council on Aging to be the CTC coordinator for the past 42 years. We have enjoyed the experience and we've done a great job of being the transportation provider in our community.
You don't have to take the first right. You can keep going. Yeah.
However, the time has come for us to allow a more robust operator to take over due to the significant growth and the changing needs of our county. Believe me, this decision did not come lightly at all. We just have to step down. But after much reflection and discussion, this will allow us to focus on the core needs and the core mission of the Council on Aging, which will be to help seniors successfully age in place. It has certainly, ladies and gentlemen, been our pleasure, and we will do everything possible to work with the new provider for a smooth transition for the future. So thank you so much for your time. And if there's anything we can do to help the new provider, we're here. You can count on us.
All right. Thank you, Janice. Are there any other, let's just go through the venues here. Anyone else in Tampa live that wishes to make a public comment about an agenda item at this time? And you'll have to let me know.
I'm surveying the room. I'm not hearing anybody. No. Okay. So no public comment cards from the audience here.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll move to the webinar. We'll get to the phone in a minute. Just the webinar itself. Anyone on the webinar, please raise your hand or speak up if you have a public comment at this time. Give people time to find that mute button. With that, the third venue are the phones. Anyone on the phone only, remember you have to hit *6 to unmute your line. Okay, I'm hearing none. Now, remember, we will have a second public comment period that can be on anything, including agenda items. as we move forward. So if you didn't get a chance to speak at this one, you can catch it on the second one. Okay, let's move to the first agenda. There you go. Thank you. The commission, this is approval of the meeting minutes. The commission convened its business meeting in Auburndale on March 20th. The meeting minutes were provided in the business meeting packet. Before we get into a vote of approval, are there any questions or revisions that any commissioner or staff is aware of? Okay, if not, I need a motion to approve the minutes, please.
This is Commissioner Gray. I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from March 20th, 2024.
Thank you. Commissioner Gray moves. Can I have a second?
Taylor Hatch, second.
Mr. Hatch, thank you. It's been motion seconded. All those in favor of accepting the March 20th, 2024 meeting minutes as indicated, indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, it passes. Okay, thank you. We'll move to the next agenda item, the CTC designation for Nassau County. And thank you, Janice, for that background on that. Help us give us the context. As you're aware, or for the new commissioners, you will be aware, one of our primary responsibilities is to approve the designation of the Community Transportation Coordinators, also known as CTC, for each county or multi-county service area in the state. This entity is responsible for arranging the delivery of transportation services to the TD population in their community, typically on a 5-year contractual basis. The designated official planning agency for that area is charged with facilitating a procurement process and recommending the entity to serve as the CTC. With that today, Summer Jones from the Northeast Florida Regional Planning Council will be presenting the recommendation for the CTC of Nassau County, which is the most northeastern county in the state of Florida. A little trivia for you. With that, Summer Jones.
All right, hello everyone. So I'm Summer Jones with the Northeast Florida Regional Council. So I'm just going to be giving a recommendation for the CTC for Nassau County. So just a little background. The Council on Aging had notified the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantage on December 4th, 2023, that they would be stepping down as a Community Transportation Coordinator, effective September 30th, 2024. As a result, the Northeast Florida Regional Council initiated a request for proposals for process for selecting a new CTC to serve Nassau County beginning on October 1st, 2024. To initiate the public competitive bidding process, a request for proposals, RFP, for the provision of service in Nassau County was published in the Florida Administrative Register and posted on our website on January 22nd, 2024. One response to the RFP was received from the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. After carefully considering all aspects of the RFP process, the evaluation committee believes the agency is capable of providing cost-effective and quality transportation disadvantaged services to Nassau County. On March 28, 2024, the Nassau County Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board held its quarterly meeting. During that meeting, the Nassau County CTC RFP Evaluation Committee recommended that Jacksonville Transportation Authority be the Community Transportation Coordinator for Nassau County. After reviewing and discussing the RFP process and JTA proposal, the Nassau County Local Coordinating Board recommended to the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantage that Jacksonville Transportation Authority be the county's Community Transportation Coordinator. On April 4th, 2024, the Northeast Florida Regional Council Executive Committee held its quarterly meeting, which the recommendation was presented to the Executive Committee and unanimously approved. So the recommendation today is that the Northeast Florida Regional Council, as a designated official planning agency for the Transportation Disadvantage Program, the Local Coordinating Board, and the Nassau County CTC RFP Evaluation Committee recommends to the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged that JTA, the Jacksonville Transportation Authority, be Nassau County's Community Transportation Coordinator beginning October 1st, 2024.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Jones? It's in your packet, pages 11, 12, 13, if the resolutions and the letters. Any questions of Ms. Jones? If not, I'll need a motion to approve the CTC designation for Nassau County to be the Jacksonville Transportation Authority, JTA. Need a motion, please.
Robert Doyle, so
Commissioner
moves.
Barrios.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Doyle. I need a second.
Commissioner
Barrios, I
Tellez
second.
seconds.
Commissioner Tellez, thank you. It's a little more logistical challenging. We got more folks on the call now, so you got to speak fast. It can be fast. We got a motion and a second to approve JTA as the CTC designation from Nassau County. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, thank you, Ms. Jones. JTA is approved as the CTC designation for Nassau County. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next agenda item. Starting on page 14 in your packet. The next agenda item is to approve funding for projects under our Innovative Service Development, also known as ISD, grant program for fiscal year 2024-2025. Dr. Tellez chaired the subcommittee that reviewed the applications and discussed all the funding options for consideration that are included within the meeting packet. Commissioner Tellez and Director Darm are going to present a summary of the projects and the funding options considered for approval. I do want to say a big thank you to Dr. Tellez and the subcommittee. It's a lot of extra work digging through that, but the intent of this grant is to come up with new and better solutions, and so it's very important. So just want to thank them for their extra time and their commitment. And with that, Commissioner Tellez.
Yes. All right. The Innovative Service Development ISD grant is a competitive grant program, and it's intended to test the new and innovative ways to serve the TD population. Every year, the CTCs are invited to submit a proposals for ISD funding to accomplish at least one of the following objectives: increase a transportation disadvantaged person's access to employment, healthcare, and other life-sustaining services. 2, enhance cross-country regional mobility options. And 3, reduce barriers for a transportation disadvantaged individual's ability to access the fixed routes transit system if available in their community. Now, for fiscal year 2023-24, the Florida legislation appropriated $3 million to the ISD grant program, which is half of what was appropriated for the previous year. The CTD can award up to $750,000 for a project that serves a single community or a multi-county service area, and up to $1.5 million for a regional project that serves multiple service areas. A CTC is eligible to receive 1 grant award per service area. So in December, the Commission adopted a policy to limit the number of years a project can be considered eligible for the ISD grant funding to a maximum of 4 years. Currently, the Commission has 4 projects that have reached the 4-year limit in Hernando, Martin, Pinellas, and St. Lucie counties. So to walk you through the process, the Commission announces its application process on February 16th and facilitated 2 training webinars to provide guidance and technical assistance to grant applicants. The Commission also provided an early bird deadline for applicants to submit their proposals and receive feedback from CTD staff, which we received full participation from the applicants. The application deadline was on April 30th, and the Commission received 10 proposals, requesting a total of $3.9 million. 8 of the applications were for for continuing or expanded projects from the current fiscal year, and 2 were for new projects. Current projects were given first consideration in the evaluation process. The subcommittee was provided with the applications on May 1st and used the scoring rubric to evaluate the proposals, which were provided to the commission staff prior to May 16th. The subcommittee included Gabe Matthews of FDOT, Kent Carroll of APD, and Krista Carter of Elder Affairs. Due to the lower amount appropriated in this year's budget, the subcommittee was presented with 3 funding options for consideration. Option 1, consider funding the current year projects based on performance of services. Option 2, consider funding the current year projects based on their evaluation scores. The subcommittee was presented with the third option that was really to consider 6.8% across the board reduction in request amounts. However, the subcommittee recommended option 3, which is to consider a combination of the current year performance and evaluation scores, as well as funding for 1 new project in Martin County. So the task at hand is, David is going to provide a summary of the funding impacts to the projects under each scenario. The subcommittee is not recommending a specific option, only that the commission approve 1 of 3 to award $3 million for FY 24-25, which begins July 1st, 2024. Take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Velez. I'll try my best to follow that act. Well, just to echo what Commissioner Velez said, this was a much tougher year. We have been saying for the last year or so that this funding needed to be at some point lower to be able to make it competitive. It was just lower than we expected it to. We asked for 4 million, and then through the process we ended up getting 3 this year. So that's kind of where we are at the point of basically trying to figure out how do we stay within budget and also recognize the services that are occurring. We want to be able to reward those projects that are doing services, but also ensuring that there is a process where it's competitive and it's demonstrating performance of some kind. So as a result of it, we had really 2 options that kind of started this conversation. I'm not going to go through all the projects, but I'm going to pick out ones that particularly just are unique and how it came into the discussions on the funding options. First off, Pinellas County, they are doing a project for regional, for 3-county regional project, so serving Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco County. And this, for the past few years, they've also been doing an urgent same-day, on-demand, basically, type of service, but that part of the project has reached its 4-year limit. So we are recommending that portion of their application, which is about $24,000, not be included in the award amount because that is reached its limit. So that's why you see in this table why in the next table actually why we're recommending that. The other factor was with Lake and Leon County. So this is something that we've seen with a lot of the projects that are trying to do a contract with a transportation network company like Uber and Lyft, or User or any other company that's a technology-based company. A lot of our CTCs have struggled to get those off the ground, to securing a contract and being able to deliver services, especially in their first year. But we're in a more unique circumstance this year because we're only with 3 million, we have to make a tough call. So in the case of Leon's project, they are currently in their 2nd year. So in their first year, they also struggled to get their services off the ground. So in the 2nd year, they were able to start delivering service, but the T eligible side of things was lower in participation. Many of the participants in that project are considered ADA paratransit services, which are not eligible under the TD Trust Fund for reimbursement. They were able to supplement those trips with their own local dollars. And we do have some participation of TD riders, but it's smaller than what was originally projected. So that was a consideration in this discussion. And then in Lake County's case, this was the current year was their first year doing it, and they were not able to secure a contract. So there was no services billed for this current year. So they are requesting for a second year with pretty much a similar amount to what they were going to do for this year's. So those are just the unique to kind of pinpoint what went into the discussions. And of course, the evaluation scores for the applications was also a part of the consideration. So this table here, and if you are looking at your packet, page 22 in the PDF gives the overview of the options and what went in consideration, both between the evaluation scores that the subcommittee did of the applications and the performance. I think something important to note is that why there might be sometimes a disparity between, say, Lake County's performance versus their score is that the subcommittee, they support the project and the concept, and it's well written as an application. But in option one, where we're talking just performance, look at option one as kind of like a hold harmless. If it's the easiest cut and dry kind of funding consideration, since there's no services occurring in Lake County right now, there's no harm to the project because there has been no services delivered. So that was one of the considerations. However, if you look at it just on the evaluation score, Lake County was in the top 4 of the rankings because their proposal was written very well. So in option one, again, it is based on the performance of the current year projects. Option two was looking at just strictly the evaluation scores and basically putting a threshold for the top 4 that would be funded at 100% of the requested amount, and it drops from there. And then the third option that the subcommittee recommended for us to add in for this discussion is considering a combination of performance and the evaluation scores. None of the projects in that scenario are recommended to be funded at 100% of what they're requesting in order to keep it within the $3 million budget. They also recommended that Martin County's project, which is a new proposed project, Martin County currently has a project that is expired for this year at the end of this year that was serving dialysis riders. So this would be a new project that would be testing the use of an app to schedule trips on a 24/7 basis. And the subcommittee felt that that should be considered in the mix, but not at the amount that they're requesting. So that's the summary basically of what's the options. And, as far as the decision today, commissioners, it's a judgment call where you feel that basically I'd say what it comes down to is, do you believe that Lake County and Martin County's project should be in the consideration? That might help you to kind of thinking through these options. But our recommendation is that you approve one of them today so that we can ensure that we get these contracts in place by July 1 and there's no disruption of service. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or Commissioner Tellez about the subcommittee process. But I think that's all I've got, Mr. Chair, for our presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Tellez and Director Darm. The commissioners, do you have questions on any of these? Do you on the general approach, option 1, option 2, and then the subcommittee addition of option 3? Any questions?
Hey, good afternoon. I have a question.
Sure.
This is Taylor Hatch. Hey, one, thank you for all the work that's gone into reviewing this. I can tell an incredible amount of hard work and just poring over lots of great applications has gone into the work product today. Really appreciate that. Looking at each individual application and looking at the options, I was noticing the utilization and expenditure trend, looking at components like Sunday offerings, looking at components that had technology like the app, for example, that we just talked about. And that brought me to the scoring on option 2. can you walk me through just from a mechanical perspective, the methodology of above 410, below 400, just the numbers of how, what is the calculation to go into that scoring? And then also was curious on option 3 in particular, there were a couple that were grouped together. For example, let's see, Monroe and Bay being grouped together at 80%.
Mhm.
Just curious of the thought process and any context that maybe the team talked about there.
Sure. I'll do my best to explain the logic. So option 2 was, if you look at the scores, we tried to figure out how could we divide the 3 million to support all those projects, but also accounting for the rankings. So every score that was above 410, we came up with 100%. And then as it went down, each sort of score there, we figured out how to try to lower that amount while still remaining in that 3 million. The Monroe Bay County they pretty much were tied at 3. I think one got 399.5 and one got 399. So that was the kind of logic as to why those got close to match. When we presented it to the subcommittee, we said, we could change these thresholds if you all feel that's necessary. There's many ways you could slice and dice those numbers, but we were trying to keep it like within the 3 million and, what would be a plausible, justifiable threshold to consider. And I think that the subcommittee, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, their view was, it was kind of like more of a concept, and we sort of went more into the conversation about option 3, that they wanted to see a hybrid of where the scores, the evaluation scores of the applications were part of the mix as well as the performance. So that's why in option 3, you see some of those percentages kind of divided a little differently, again, to stay within trying to accommodate as many projects as possible within that 3 million. And that page 22 has each of the options are described based on the percentages for the packet. So I hope that answered.
Director Dharma, I think the commissioner was asking about the scoring rubric of option 2 versus option 3. Is that correct, Commissioner Hatch?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, two separate questions. One, what were the considerations that go into the determination of you receive 410 points versus 396? And the second to that was curious on the coupling between Monroe and Bay, which I now see they've had the same score. So that makes sense there. But the considerations that go into determining someone, receiving a score of 399 was curious of what was it, the utilization rate perhaps, or the level of innovation, how creative you were? What were those components?
So we have a scoring rubric that they used, the subcommittee members used. So all 4 of them, the numbers that you see in the total ranking, that represents all 4 of the subcommittee's scoring tallied up as a total. So the scoring and the evaluation rubric side of things, they look at the description. How is the project well described? Do they have evidence, good, strong evidence of need? Did they describe their project innovation, their demonstration of outcomes, overall budget, all those things that were written into the proposal were evaluated and assigned a value basically on each. Basically, if the applicant could answer those questions, the subcommittee members would score from a scale from say 1 to 10 or 1 to 35, depending on what the question was. You want to add?
I just wanted to add that there were extra points for innovation. So I think they got 5 more points or a certain amount of points. So the way that the rubrics is set up, it allows us to actually individually score, and then we actually have a meeting together to have the discussion.
Thank you for that. Yes, that is very helpful. Was just looking at.
Krista, you want to add anything? She's on the committee.
If you don't mind.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you're looking at the rubric and the grant application, an assigned value is on the rubric and aligns with each section of the application.
Mhm.
So you are directly reading what was required in the application, and then based on what you're reading, assigning that score on the rubric for each section, which is how you get your total tally at the bottom.
Gotcha.
Is that
Yes.
clear that up? Okay.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful. It was obviously exciting for me to read through each of these applications. And so, because I truly, I think the idea behind this, is inherently in its name innovative. Looking at this as an incubator to test out different ideas, right?
Mhm.
Before you move them into product development, if you're thinking about it from a factory perspective, right? And so coupling that and reviewing the applications with the overall funding. I know that this body works through and the entire state needs to be able to provide transportation services. I think that this incubator, if you will, could serve as a blueprint, right, for what we're doing long term from a sustainability lens. And so I appreciate it. I am inquisitive by nature and will ask a lot of questions just to better understand, because I'm also educating myself in this space a bit more. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Sure. Any other commissioners' questions on the general process? We've got an action item, but let's make sure everybody's comfortable with where we're sitting right now.
This is Commissioner Doyle. Just looking at the proposals again. I know the Director Darm says you can slice and dice this a whole lot of different ways, and the subcommittee is not necessarily recommending any particular option. I'm not sure if you leaned in any particular way. I see opportunities going in every direction. One of the things, getting back to Lake, for example, one of the things is, nothing at all in option one. And then, as much as if you did option three, only giving about half of the funds. My question is, if you chose an option three for Lake, are they able to even take anything to scale? Does it even come to any value to them if you fund it at such a low level in the Lake arena?
It's a good
question. Yeah, Commissioner Doyle, I asked the exact same question. Is the project viable at reduced funding level in any way, shape, or form? And so, Director Darm, you want to speak to that, or Dr. Les about what we talked about, Director Darm?
Well, I mean, one part of this is to hope that if there is concerns that would have been raised during the public comments, both during the subcommittee's discussion, which was public. We did have a public meeting on that, but also during this session here, because this information was presented, a week and a half ago. And if we do have, if staff tell me, speak up if I'm speaking out of turn here, but if this comes as an issue, assuming if you approve an option today, and we still have to work with the individual recipients in developing their contract, their grant agreement, basically to execute that. So if there was an issue that was coming up where they could not see doing it, then we could bring that back and discuss that at the next commission meeting if that is something that does come up. But in the case of Lake, to your question, Commissioner Doyle, I mean, judging by the trend, it takes a long time for these systems to get just the contract in place. And I think it's partly because the fact that they're governmental entities, they have to go through an extensive process of just securing the contract and then to market it, get ridership involved in it. It is at least our historical experience with having at least 2 to 3 projects with involving a TNC has been challenging to get off the ground for its first year. So I would say that's just based on our historical experience working with these projects.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, my understanding is initially there were options 1 and 2 proposed, and then was it the subcommittee or somebody asked to go back and look at a third option?
The subcommittee recommended
a third option.
Yes, when we met as a subcommittee, the third option was to take 6.8%?
6.8%.
6.8% across the board. And we didn't think that would help especially if you look at the age of some of those projects where they're well established and they're actually using those funds. We decided to look at it in a different way. And actually, we felt that it was important that the performance be considered as well as our scoring.
Right.
Because you can write a great contract, but and Lake is kind of an example, would be wonderful in writing, but they just weren't, because of technical issues or legal issues, they weren't able to perform. So that's why we wanted to make sure, we thought it was a fairer option, right, Krista?
I agree with that. I do not believe that solely looking and making a decision based on narrative, when you do have established, organizations that are performing well, was the right way to go. We wanted to look at something, and we brought it up in the meeting previously, something that was allowable, reasonable, necessary, allocable. And how do you do that other than assigning and reviewing both aspects of what we're asking them to do? So, and that's where the third option came up. How do we, especially with procurement, I mean, if it's something that is, if you're following state rules and they're doing an RFP, that could take 1 to 3 months minimum. So by dropping their funding in half, essentially with option 3 for Lake County, and then getting into contract, once they've done that RFP, they're probably going to balance out pretty well with how they're going to spend down by the time it's actually in place. And then I believe the idea was that for next year, once they've got established contracts and contractors, it will be more fluid. They'll be able to go, we will see their performance, and then possibly fund more depending on what the allocations are.
Mr. Chair, we do have a public comment card here from Bill Herndon, who's representing Lake County. And he's can speak if you want to. It's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to have that right now.
No, I think it's a relevant time now. So let's go ahead and what 1B, public comment section 1B, related to the agenda item, I guess. Remember the rules of engagement. Please identify your name, organization, your county residence. You have 5 minutes. We'll give you a 1 minute warning. So with that, go ahead.
Alrighty, my name is Bill Herndon. I'm with Lake County. I reside in Lake County also, county board residents. So our choice would be either option 1 or 2. Option 3, I've already had 3 TNCs tell me my project's not big enough for them to consider coming into my service area. So option 3 is not going to do me any good whatsoever. So you might as well distribute those funds to the other counties. Option 1, we can regroup, we can do a formal RFP, we can reapply for service development grant next year and see how it goes. I'm neutral to option 1 or 2. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do we know, have we, Director Darm or Commissioner Tellez, have we received any feedback prior to this meeting from any of the other proposers?
Not to us, no.
Okay. Because I mean, I'll just give you my personal perspective. I mean, I like more projects. This is, as Commissioner said, is an incubator type program. And so I'm a fan of more projects being tried, as long as they're feasible, potentially at a funding level that matches up with what's available. To hear the representative from Lake County say they are not interested in partial funding, it was interesting to me. I mean, because I guess I was leaning towards option 3, where we would fund 2 additional projects and continue funding, the rest of the projects. So it was definitely interesting to hear that there was not interest in that from their perspective. But anyway, commissioners, any conversations about any of these options?
Is there an option 4 that we could create on the table where if we were
not without another subcommittee meeting. I mean,
without
there's math behind this, and a little science, and a lot of legwork. So we would need to, you know, reconvene the subcommittee and I don't know what option 4 would be. I mean, again, option 1 was historical performance. Option 2 was the strength of the individual proposal. And option 3 was a blend of that, which I'm a fan of from a general selection, not just this one, but any selection of considering past performance, because it is relevant, you know,
This is Commissioner Barrios. I just have maybe a comment or possibly question. You know, traditionally, you know, for grants in general, when folks are applying for funding, and I say this from a social science perspective, if you get one thing wrong in the application, you're done, right? So just from that perspective, I would say I'm not sure why we just don't base it off the application in real world. Well, I'm not that this is not real world, but in most other situations, that's how it goes, right?
Yeah, I don't believe that the rubric, I mean, I think the lesson potentially learned, commissioners, I don't believe the rubric had a scoring weighting for past performance. A lot of times scoring rubrics on selection committees I've been involved in may include that in the scoring rubric. In this case, option 2 did not. Is that correct, Commissioner Tellez? We did not have.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I think maybe moving forward, I'm a fan of looking at if it's a continuation of how it's been going. But to answer your question, Commissioner, I think that the rubric did not contain it. And so essentially option 3 modifies the rubric to consider it in the weighting.
I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
and one last thing, for those folks that's looking at projects from last year and folks that didn't use their funding, and I apologize if you know this is common knowledge, but what happens to that funding that doesn't get used? Do they still have access to that, or does that go back to the commission?
I can answer that, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That's that funding. So we operate on a zero-based budget. So if funding is not spent, and this is across all our grant programs, by the end of the fiscal year, it returns back to the trust fund and then gets reappropriated a year later. So no, they would have to, for the current fiscal year, they would have to bill us basically through June 30th, and then that would be it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, which does also lead to the weighting of performance. I mean, of giving performance some value of weighting to say that, you know, because we lose, because the intent of the grant program is to find ways of providing service. And if we're not spending the dollars, then we're not getting the value, future and a current and or future value that could come from an innovative program. So I'm a big proponent of, you know, looking at, you know, did we actually do anything? Because the money just reverts back. We lose the ability to leverage those dollars. Every dollar that goes back is a dollar that we lost an opportunity for, is the way I kind of look at it. But anyway, so any commissioners?
Commissioner Barrios, I have one more question.
Yeah.
So knowing now that Lake is not interested in partial funding and that would be a waste of dollars, does that change things for the subcommittee at all?
Well, I would think, now correct me if I'm wrong, Director Dorm or Commissioner Les, that money would get reallocated to, in option 3, to the other applicants that were recommended for approval at some level. Is that correct or not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we would reallocate the $81,909 proportionally to the other ones.
If you want to recommend that as sort of like if you want to go approve option 3, you could put that as the sort of an addition
Caveat, yeah.
with that. Yeah, I can't find the words to say it right, but I think that's a possibility that we can certainly change the mathematical equations there for that, but I wouldn't be able to do that in this meeting. We'd have to obviously go back and put the numbers together following the meeting.
The option 4.
That would be your option four, yes. That basically would.
And, and if I may, I mean,
Yeah.
what prevent, Mr. Chair, what would prevent from a recommendation of option three and then basically allowing the staff to designate how that's distributed? I mean, it's $81,000.
Right. No, I agree. We would just,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think that makes all the sense in the world. If the commission wants to go with option three, then we could make that part of the discussion and obviously part of the motion, given that they redistribute that and give them the autonomy to do that. The subcommittee, the
This is-
ability to do it.
Commissioner Smith, I have one question related to
Yep.
that too, though. Would the caveat be of redistributing the 81,000? However, we are unclear, or it's still gray, if you will, whether or not any of the other entities that are receiving less than the requested 90% would have issues with the level at which they're receiving. We haven't received confirmation from the others.
Well, Director Durham had mentioned that the subcommittee summary meeting that occurred a few weeks ago was open for the applicants to attend. And I don't know if they were sent the results of their application. And then this meeting here for them to comment as well. I believe the intent was between the subcommittee meeting and this meeting that if anyone had issues like Lake County mentioning it was not viable to them at 50%, only at 0 or 100, then that was my understanding of how that was communicated. Am I correct there, Director Durham, Commissioner Tellez?
Yes, I mean, in essence, it's all the information we put out there, obviously, in the public, and look for public comments if there are concerns about it. But to our knowledge, we have not received any additional feedback from the applicants about the proposed options as far as leading up to this meeting.
Commissioner Smith, is there a concern that it's too passive in nature, or that we? I mean, I'm asking your desire that we communicate directly and get an answer for this.
Well, and I would hope that they would be listening to this meeting as well too, considering
Yes.
they put in the application for it and it would be here. And thankfully, we did have Lake that was able to speak to that today, and the others should be listening as well too, even though no voices yet from those, which I understand. But more so, it was my concern on whether or not if we were to go with option three with the caveat of redistributing the 81, if that ties our hands for any others that may raise their hand and say, hey, we only want the full funding, not the partial funding, and how we would be able to redistribute those as well. If it came to that.
Right. Yeah, and I'm assuming that if anyone else late in the game decided they could not do it for 75, 80, 85, or 90% of their funding, that they would speak up. I guess during the contracts negotiation phase would be that opportunity for them to, and again, these are just recommendations. We still have to get through the contract phase. If anything were to occur, just like normal in a contract phase that would prevent us from fully executing a contract, then that money would also be available. You know, again,
Which we have had in the past. We've had awarded funding for a project, but never ended up having the contract executed for whatever circumstances at the local level that was going on. So that has happened in the past. But that's just something that we would address if it does come up through the contract negotiating or agreeing, developing in the next few months or the next few weeks.
That's helpful conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, and this is good conversation for the new folks, is the any hiccups in the process, any problems with any of these, we would come back to the commission, give everyone that information and communicate the intent to redistribute at that point in time. Is that correct? Or are you saying staff would do that?
Well, again, if the staff want to chime in here, there's another way to do it. But what I'm hearing is that you could all make a motion to approve one of these options with the caveat based on what we just discussed with Lake County circumstance. And then we could basically, as staff, you're giving us the authority to put that basically, what is it, 81,000 redistributed and to all the other projects. And that would be the decision today.
Yeah, the question was that Commissioner Smith raised, I guess the scenario was if someone else said, nah, that's just not going to be a viable project. We'll just reapply next year and hope to get set. So in that case, what would be the plan of action if some additional applicant basically withdrew their application?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen?
This is Commissioner Carter. So in contracts, it's not uncommon to need to amend funding through amendments. And if we say that we awarded using option 3 and other organizations decided that they could not sustain a project at that rate, then it would not be unusual to do an amendment and to evenly distribute the remaining funds to bring them back up to the funding level they had previously requested if their scores and their performance allowed that to happen. So this is not, like I said, this is just not unusual for grants or contracts as it pertains to funding. And it is something that can be done, I believe, through the staff of the CTD, because you would essentially be evenly distributing it and only up to the amount that was previously requested.
No, I would agree with that. I guess the question for Director Darn was, would the commission have to be involved in that? I'm a firm fan of letting the staff handle that redistribution because it's just a math exercise at that point in time. But
if I may, this
yes.
is Rochelle Munson as counsel. If I may, if I can suggest if you're considering any modification to the way the options are particularly represented today, and you will need a vote on it because it's an action item, that if you're considering the caveat to defer to staff for any additional changes for equal distribution, however you want to word it, that needs to be a portion of that motion, or it needs to be a vote by this commission, because without that vote, it would almost be an action of staff unilaterally.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
Clarify your motion as to how you want it to be done, not just, well, we'll figure it out, because then that could cause some gray areas, just as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, for sure. Okay, commissioners, any more conversation, questions, discussion?
This is Commissioner Carter. Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine.
I would like to just, I'm wondering, because it sounds as though Lake County has had discussions with their different coordinators. They obviously know that they can't provide services at the option 3 level. But where are we, or where are you with getting into a contract, with actually having services up and ready to go? Is it something that's going to take several months, or is this something that is you're ready and you know you have a plan and you believe that this is going to work July 1 type deal? Like, before we made that decision to go with option 3, if we're basing it off of performance and scores, is there a light at the end of the tunnel for that performance based on, because you didn't perform badly, you just couldn't perform. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so Director Darm, I don't know if you want to address the timeline. I think you should address the timeline. I mean, most of these are continuation, so I'm assuming maybe a contract amendment versus a brand new contract. But if you want to, we do have one potentially new projects in option 3. You want to give them a timeline, the anticipated or preferred, however you want to say it, the timeline for how we move forward with any of these options.
Was your question, Commissioner Carter, about specifically lakes, or you're talking about the general, our staff's process that we go through when we're building the contracts.
It was geared toward lakes simply because they are the organization that has stood up and said that this is how it's going to impact them most seriously. And we haven't heard from other organizations yet.
Well, Bill is here if,
So I actually have a TNC on hold. I'm supposed to call them immediately after this meeting to let them know whether or not we proceed with contracting. If you do choose to fund option 2, I don't foresee any problem starting up with this TNC. If you do choose option 1, I do see it as an opportunity for us to do a formal procurement and to invite other TNCs to participate.
Thank you.
So, like I said, really neutral either way.
I appreciate that.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? And it's okay. You can ask as many questions as you want. And that was all the easy part. So now we
Mr. Chair.
need, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Commissioner Doyle. I'm going to move that we select option 3, removing funds from Lake County and delegating authorization to staff to redistribute the $81,909. And that's the end of my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle. So with that, we have a motion to approve option 3 with the addition that the $81,909 allocated to the Lake County Board of County Commissioners would be redistributed by staff specifically to the other approved applicants. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Carter. I second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. With that, we have a motion and a second. And Rochelle, speak up if it's not clear enough. So
I believe the motion is clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, all those in favor of the motion as stated, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye. I'm opposed.
Good.
I apologize. So this is Commissioner Barrios, and I'm
Yes.
only opposed because I don't believe the motion takes into account potential other projects that may deny funding. And I think if we're allowing the staff to redistribute any potential funds from, in that case, that we need to be specific about that as well.
And if I may, thank you, Commissioner, but if I may, as I stated earlier, if there are any changes to what happens outside of what this commission approves at this meeting, it's going to have to come back to the commission for discussion. So if anybody else wants to reduce it or have any other changes to it, Commissioner Barrios, you're right, the staff can't act on it. It does not incorporate those type of considerations. It will have to come back for a full commission review.
Yeah, we did not want to do a
In that case,
unilateral.
I'll withdraw my opposition. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so any nays? With that, the motion to accept option 3 with the caveat to reduce Lake County Board of County Commissioners $81,909 to be redistributed by staff is approved. Thank you for that. See, it's just so much fun sometimes. Yes, that's good. I mean, there's some good projects here. I mean, again, the intent is to really come up with some new stuff, some new ways of providing service. So that's an exciting part of the opportunity for us, exciting opportunity for us.
And if I may add, Mr. Chair, just real quick before we leave to this topic, I think that we are planning to have this be a discussion in the fall about before we get into the next cycle of applications to reassess that process. We're always evolving that process. Each year we learn something. So this year was the big takeaway was how to account for performance. So I fully expect that we will have a discussion as a board about this again and ways that we can improve that or adjust that based on these lessons learned. So it's not like this process is set in stone year to year. We can adjust it based on these lessons. So it's innovative.
Yeah.
So that's the process. It's innovative. You're learning something from it.
Right.
I would-
Go ahead, Ron.
I would like to add that, actually, I think I started from 2016 with this process. It is totally, so is Krista, it is totally evolved to where it is today. One of the things that we did is we started having the actual, each of them come and do a public presentation of what they're doing, how they're doing. So it's really evolved to kind of get much more involvement. And as you are serving on this commission, you're gonna get to see all of that. So
Mr. Chair, if I may too, and I again don't want to take anything away from Lake and the proposal and things like that, but it did sound like this provides Lake an opportunity to really go back and
Right.
revisit and actually do a fuller procurement opportunity. So again, I don't want to take anything away from you all in that regard, but it just sounds like an opportunity for you all to move forward. And if you weren't going to have a viable project at that funding level, just be able to distribute those funds in a way that for now, and then give you a chance to come back. That was my thoughts.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Like I said, it's it's very interesting to see, we get some really good projects we can implement statewide to help us provide services. That would be outstanding. Next agenda item, September 23, Commission approved the continuation of a study to test the collection of disaggregated, meaning more detailed data within the annual operating report, AR system. The commission did contract with Thomas Howell Ferguson to facilitate the study. This spring, Thomas Howell Ferguson created a test website, and they worked with several CTC service areas to collect and also analyze their more detailed data as part of the 2023 AOR. Casey Perkins, who's from Thomas Howell Ferguson, is going to provide us an overview of the results of this study. So, Casey, are you on? Casey, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Well, let me share my screen real quick. And just let me know if you can see a PowerPoint slide.
Yes.
Enlarge it.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Can you do the show mode on that, Casey? So we can.
Yeah, there we go.
There
Is that
you
better?
go. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so again, Joe, every time we do this, just a refresher, we actually did a study on the AOR last year. And at the end of that study, there were 3 recommendations, but really the core recommendation is what got to the heart of everything. And that's recommendation 2 here, it's highlighted. And it's that whereas the AOR currently collects aggregated data, that is annual totals of trips at a very high level, the recommendation was to explore and really test run the collection of more disaggregated data. In fact, we really recommended going all the way down to the trip level data. So collecting data on every single individual trip that is provided, as well as individual bus passes. And that's what we'll be focusing on today, as the update is on that actual test running of the collection of disaggregated data. So in order to collect the data, we put together a prototype. It's essentially a website where CTCs could visit and upload their disaggregated data to us. And as of today, we've had a total of 10 counties or CTCs from those counties actually go to the site and test uploading their disaggregated data, and they're listed here. Some were kind of part of the initial testing, some were part of the later testing, but we really appreciate everyone who participated and provided feedback, and it definitely had an impact in terms of evolving the site. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the site, but then we're actually going to go see the site itself. which is why I'm sharing my screen. But first and foremost, I just want to emphasize this. Security was a very big deal for this. We built in multiple layers of security. So when you even just try to go to the site itself, you have to enter a 4-digit PIN just to access the site. And that's a PIN that we control. We can change it at any time. So if a CTC wanted to participate, they had to reach out to Thomas Howell Ferguson, get the site PIN, and go from there. The other thing is each county has their own dedicated web page for uploading their data. So in addition to providing them the site PIN, we would have a password, a unique password for each web page that we would have to provide to the CTC as well. And so when they do upload their data, it went to, it uploaded to a secure server on our end. But as soon as it came in, one of our staff would then export that data off the server to a text file and store it offline. So we never actually kept any data on the server. And then also, whenever they were done, we actually took down the county webpage from the site, so it was no longer publicly available. And then based on some feedback from a workshop we did statewide with the CTCs back in April, as part of this test running, we put in another security feature, and that is as the data is being uploaded, the passenger names are masked as part of the uploading process. So instead of Jane Doe, John Doe, you would on our end, we would see passenger 1, passenger 2, etc. So just as part of the test run, not necessarily saying it's recommended, you go about doing it that way down the road, but just as part of the test run, we did mask the passenger names. So gonna go to the site now. And as you can see, it's asking for the PIN. So I enter the PIN. And this is the home page, and I'll show you where they upload their data. I'm not going to do an actual upload just for the sake of time. And then at the very end, we're going to look at some of the data that Citrus County uploaded and why disaggregated data can be so valuable. But whenever a county like Citrus wants to upload their data or participate in the test running, they'd reach out to us, they'd get that PIN. Then we would we'd make publicly available their dedicated webpage. So I'll go there. And remember, I mentioned the password for each page. It's there as well. And this is what they would see. On the left-hand side, you have, pretty specific instructions on how to go about filling everything. When they upload their disaggregated trip data, we ask for it in 13 columns or 13 data fields. What was the date of the trip? What was the passenger name or unique identifier? And remember, whatever was in here, it got masked as part of the upload process. Also ask for pickup time, address, city, as well as drop-off time, address, city, the number of miles associated with the trip type, the purpose of the trip, who is the main revenue source or purchaser, and the provider type. And so really, we structured this to really reflect the current AOR as much as possible. We're not really at this stage trying to propose any radical changes in terms of the overall structure. The big thing is just getting that disaggregated trip data. So Citrus in this case would be entering data, and I call them 4 buckets. You can call them 4 fields, tabs, whatever. But first bucket, and this is kind of how the current AOR process works, you input your general information. Which county are you? What's your CTC name, contact information? So you would do that first. Then the second bucket, and this is the part that we're really interested in, they would attach a file of all their trips. So think of an Excel spreadsheet or a table. Every single row in it represents a trip, and every column represents one of these 13 data fields I just mentioned. And so after that, there's another part of the current AOR. I called it inventory and incidents. But how many vehicles did you utilize? How many drivers? How many commendations and complaints? No-shows, trip requests, that sort of thing. So they would just kind of report that as an annual total. And then very similar for their expenses and revenues. We just divided this up by purchaser, but annual expenses and revenues as well. And when they were all ready, they would submit, they click the submit button, the data would get uploaded, and it would be summarized for them so they could review. If everything looked good, then they were done. If something looked off, they have the opportunity to actually go back here and resubmit everything. and it would replace the data they'd uploaded before. So they actually have the opportunity every time they're doing this test run to upload their data as many times as they need to until it looks right to them. Now, the disaggregated data, the second recommendation of that report, it had two main benefits that we saw. One is you have an audit trail. So you're not looking at just an annual total of trips anymore in the AOR, but you would actually be able to tie it to, records of every single individual trip. So that just helps with verification. But the other part is when you collect more disaggregated data, you have the opportunity, because you're collecting more data points, you have the opportunity to analyze more. You have the opportunity to answer more questions, whatever those may be. And that's incredibly valuable. So I'm going to go, like I said, to Citrus County here. And I'm just kind of give you 4 examples. And these are just examples I thought of, but they are by no means like the only kind of analysis you can do. The kind of analysis you can do with disaggregated data is practically infinite. But I'm going to give you 4 examples, and let me know if I need to zoom in or out. But 4 examples of things that we can answer with disaggregated data that we couldn't previously with the aggregated data. So right here, as part of the data that Citrus County uploaded, you see the number of trips by funding sources they reported. And this is something that is in the current AOR. It does disaggregate down to one level. They'll take the total annual trips and they'll say, here's how the trips break down by funding source. They'll do it another way too. They'll say, here's how the trips break down by trip purpose. But that's it. You're kind of stuck there. You can't even combine the two. You can't say, well, what was the trip purpose by funding source? So TD here, they provided 25,650 trips during the year for TD programs, for your TD programs. So how does that break down by trip purpose? Can't answer with the current structure, but because we collected their disaggregated data, we're able to look at it now. So for CTD's trips only, the number 1 trip purpose was actually nutritional. And that was actually pretty interesting because our guess was that it would be medical. You look at other payers, medical tends to be the top one. And it may be the case, they can speak for themselves, of course, but maybe they prioritize nutritional for your program because there's just funding available for medical from the other sources. So that's the first example. Second example has to do with geography. So in the current AOR, there is a yes or no field where each CTC is asked, do you provide trips that cross county lines? But it's just yes or no. You don't know which counties. You don't know how frequently in those counties. Well, reading from the disaggregated data that they uploaded, we're able to look at that. So if it's shaded gold, it's a county that Citrus, the CTC there either did a pickup or a drop off or both at some point during the year. So Citrus is most of the trips because we are looking at Citrus, but they had some trips in Levy, not many there. A few more in Alachua. Marion, actually quite a few, almost 1,500 trip seats. So a lot of cross-county trips happening there, and then some in Sumter. But this is interesting also. They have trips that don't just cross county lines, but cross multiple county lines. They have trips to Hillsborough. So again, disaggregated data, much more granular analysis. Whoops. Going to go to my third example. So in the current AOR, you just have annual totals, right? You can't even really look at it by month. You don't know how many trips happened in January versus February versus March, etc. But with that individual trip level data, you can drill all the way down to the specific day. And that's what you're looking at here. How many trips were provided on each day? So on the very first day of the state fiscal year, they provided 127 trips on July 1, 2022. Very last day of the fiscal year, they provided 144 trips on June 30th. And another thing, you can kind of glean from this that's revealing is they're a Monday through Friday operation. They don't provide weekend trips, and that's not uncommon at all. Based on the invoice data we've been doing for y'all for 4 years now, a lot of CTCs are Monday through Friday. But that's something, again, weekend trips, you don't know it from the current AOR. You're not able to break it down by date at all. So that's the third one, but you can drill down even deeper. You can look at the time of day. So during the year, what was the most popular time that drop-offs took place? Between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. What was the most popular time that pickups took place? Same time, 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. What were the hours of operation? Well, no trips before 5 a.m., but some between 5 and 6 a.m., not many. And then no trips after, I'd say 6 p.m. 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. was the final hour of operation. And then right below here, we actually have the exact same analysis. I'm just kind of giving you an example of how not only can you analyze a question different ways, but you can actually visualize the same analysis different ways. So again, pickups, I'll scroll down there. Pickups, biggest hour between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Drop-offs, same thing. But looking at them together makes intuitive sense. You got more pickups earlier in the day. You got more drop-offs later in the day. And then this is the final thing I'll go through, and this is the most granular analysis we'll be showing you today. But this is a scatter plot. Again, we're looking at pickup times and drop-off times. So every single dot on this scatter plot represents an individual trip. You know, based on, I guess, let's see, the vertical axis is their drop-off time, horizontal axis is their pickup time. It's also color-coded based on the mode of transportation. So green there, those are just wheelchair trips, but we can also include ambulatory requiring lift. And you can see, you know, follows a pretty good line, which you would expect. You know, this looks like a 20-minute trip right here, but it's easy to spot the ones that take longer, you know, 3 hours, 3.5 hours there, 4 hours. And we did see that they had some trips going to Hillsborough and back. So I suspect that's what some of these are. So those are the examples with citrus. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've actually collected data to do this kind of analysis now, though, for 10 counties. Really appreciate their participation. So in terms of next steps, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now. So we are actually going to leave this site up for testing more. We're kind of done with that official data collection and testing, but we can actually tweak it so that CTCs can still go to the site and test the uploading of their data and do the review process, but it won't be saved in a server anywhere. It'll actually, the way it would work is they'll upload their data, they get to review it, but as soon as it's uploaded, it's deleted. So that's just something, you know, if they want to continue to practice in case this is used at any point moving forward, they'll have ample opportunity to test and practice. This is actually going to all this material I've gone over with you. This is going to be a report that we're finalizing this month and we'll deliver to the commission. As part of that, we'll have some more data analysis similar to what you just saw today, but probably more types of analyses and for all 10 counties that participated. We'll also have some technical recommendations, and I want to emphasize technical, not policy recommendations, but if we were to move forward with a tool like this or something similar, what are some of the design recommendations? So for instance, if they upload their data multiple times, you know, should we save every single upload, or is it okay the way we had it during this test run where you only save the most recent version? Or should the uploading be available only during certain times? Those are the kinds of technical recommendations that will be included. And then also, I don't think this was mentioned at the beginning, but we really at the beginning of this year, we started working with the IT team over at DOT to see if they could do some of the hosting of the server so that when the data is uploaded, it goes right to a DOT server instead of something that we're hosting. And in order to get that done, you have to do something called a technology proposal, and that's working its way through the process. And so we're going to continue to work with DOT on that technology proposal. But in the meantime, we'll continue to provide whatever resources are needed to continue studying this, continue test running this, and, you know, if it's implemented, you know, actually doing it. So that's everything I've got. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Casey. I know there was one question in the chat box related to the ownership of that. So I think you answered that. Casey was saying that the Florida DOT would host the data on their site if the proposal is successful. That's correct, right?
That's
the data
correct.
would be.
If we have to host any servers while that technology proposal is going through the process it needs to go through, we're fine to do that and hand over all data to DOT. So we have no intention of holding on to the data
Okay,
at
sure.
Thomas Howell Ferguson.
And the second, we're going to open this up to questions, but I thought I'd sneak my questions in first. You said that there were some technical questions that you were addressing. Are you soliciting feedback from the 10 test counties on what they would like to see? Because I mean, the graphs are really great. I like the options in those, the way you can zoom in, zoom out on the data. Are those graphs exportable for the counties to be able to use and report out, and for consistency of reporting? Are they able to export their graph, their snapshot from their site? Those kind of questions. Are we getting those questions from the counties on what would make the tool better for them as part of this?
Yeah, this is really the first that we've really publicly shown the analyses, the data
Yeah.
visuals and whatnot, but that can easily be a part of the feedback. I'll just show you here right now. I'm looking at the pickup hours.
Right.
You said, is it exportable? So I can export this to
Okay,
a
as a CSV,
and
SVG. Yeah,
I can also do a
It's-
JPEG, a PDF. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Yeah. Okay.
And I want to clarify, when you export to a CSV, it's just the numbers here. It's not the actual
Sure.
data.
It's a snapshot. Yeah, it's a subset. Yeah, got it.
Yep.
So the second part of the question, are we soliciting the 10 test pilot counties for additional suggestions or asked from the tool? Are we asking the counties what would make it better for them as far as just the technical part, the interface, the report outs, those sorts of things?
Well, as part of the test run, and I'll tell you this, and David might want to answer this further, but as part of the test run, they had to reach out to Thomas Howell Ferguson just to get access to the site. And there were extensive conversations about how to do it right, and how to do things. Now that we're really publicly showing the data analysis piece of it for the first time, I think we can start having those conversations as well.
Okay, that would be great. That would be my suggestion, that we solicit feedback from the users, because they're going to see things that you won't see, I won't see, because they're in the trenches of consumerism, as you will. So they're going to have a different set of eyes on it than we would. Okay, with that, any commissioners, any questions of Casey and/or Director Darn on the website, the pilot project that we're working on right now in general?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Hey, Mr. Chair, Taylor Hatch, question probably for you, Casey, is do we have any understanding yet, looking at the data for those initial pilot counties? And I know it's a little bit apples and oranges, but looking at the data from those initial pilot counties and comparing that to the data and reporting that we currently receive, sounds like on a roll up, a higher level lens, any comparative of what this data is able to display rather than what we receive now, data discrepancies, anything like that to share?
I think that can be part of the report. I just want to clarify though, when you say comparisons, you mean like, do the totals add up, or these are the types of questions that can be answered with each? You mean both?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So certainly from a baseline perspective, the totals adding up without a doubt from a data integrity lens. And then also just thinking about what this data could help present and help, what policies it could help to inform potentially that the current capture of data and reporting is not able to do, just sheer based on the level of detail, that we have. Just thinking through.
Okay.
And my understanding is that we are not, meaning commission is not doing any type of quality control per se, that the onus of uploading accurate data is on the county, correct? We're not going in and and saying, this isn't right, that you should, I mean, we're letting them upload it as long as they upload it in the correct fields. We're not getting into their data, right?
So I'm not involved with quality control or monitoring with Thomas Howell Ferguson. I do think there's a little bit that goes on, but I think what you said is largely accurate, which is the onus is on them.
Yeah,
they just
other
wanna
than
make sure it's reported a certain way.
Sure, yeah, other than the issue of, the quality being technical quality, meaning they put the right information in the right field. If they get the fields mixed up and something looks strange, and they would call back and say, hey, double check your data. No, that would be reasonable, but I think that was maybe talking about the data question, that we're depending on the counties to do whatever internal quality control and upload their best available data to the system at that point in time, since it will be used for conversations and discussions and decision making, that sort of thing. So, all right. Any commissioners, additional questions, comments?
This is Commissioner Tellez. Casey, can you tell me what information besides their name is collected about the writer?
I'll go back to the 13 columns to review that real quick. Let's see.
Not the purpose, but the writer.
I got you. So the only thing related directly to the writer per se would be the passenger name. Well, there is no, actually, we did not ask for it. There is passenger eligibility, which Citrus actually did provide. But we are just asking for these 13 right now. Now, you could argue with pickup address and drop off address that is indirectly kind of identifiable.
Can you zoom in, Casey, so they Casey, can you zoom in so they can see a little bit better?
There you go.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's better.
It's better.
Yeah, so I guess it's really just the name. And again, that's masked as of right now, in terms of something directly related to the writer. The others are really about the trip characteristic.
Is there anyone here that might find any other information valuable about the writer? Maybe something we can consider that would help us in the future?
Commissioner Carter, I was curious, and I think you kind of answered more demographic information and in the way of which population we're serving. Is this a senior population? Is this a APD clients? Is this, what is it, or who is it that we're actually serving through these grants?
Yeah, so I know the current AOR does ask for the passenger eligibility. For some reason, it's not in the county summaries. I think there's like a table at the very end of it. So it is collected, and it could be a 14th column here easily.
I think to your question, I really appreciate that. More is not always better, absolutely. But I was absolutely going down the same rabbit hole that you were, and thinking about when we're working with individuals and families, just like every single person in this room, your needs and your goals change throughout whatever stage of life that you're in. And so I could see something like age being helpful to inform as well. The way that individuals like to consume information is different too, based on different stages of life, right? And so especially coming off the review of some of the grants that spoke to using an app on your phone, for example, if the riders are younger in age, that may be a consideration that we want to bolster versus what the data tells us and work that we can focus on with elder affairs. So maybe age would be another component.
This is Commissioner Carter. And due to the, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, I wouldn't want to put too much information out there. I would look for more generalized information in that roll-up account of individuals maybe who are 60 plus,
right?
Not specific detailed client information.
Right.
Age groups.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, I would ask our legal side of the house to get involved in what we're allowed to ask, in general. That because that's a slippery slope these days. I just there's enough information there that if you give too many data points, it could compromise someone a little bit. So I would ask if we're going to add additional data fields about the individual, not the trip characteristics, that we get some guidance on either, from the DOT or Rochelle, from your side of the house on what we really can collect and not get in some trouble somewhere with it. And remember too, that this is the first step. It's not the ultimate step too. I don't want us, wouldn't want us to get bogged down with too much. I agree, a little bit more information would be better. And the more we can get, the better the ability to analyze the data. But this more detailed or disaggregated data is a huge improvement over, historical reporting methods with AOR. So it is a very big step in the right direction, in my opinion, personal opinion. Again, I would just ask that if we're going to add additional data fields, that maybe we get some guidance on what's allowable for us to ask. Maybe it's, like Commissioner, like you suggested, we do some bandwidths or something like that. I don't know. That's that side of the house. I'm not sure what we're allowed to ask from.
Just as a reminder, that was the third recommendation in last year's study, was to take a look at the legal authorities on that. And I do want to also emphasize this: what you collect and what you report don't have to be the same thing at all. So you could collect the actual age and just report age groups, that sort of thing. So
right. So, any other questions?
Hi, Commissioner Barrios. I'm just curious to know if anyone can say if the collection website or any of the reports are 508 compliant.
What is that?
You might have just answered my question. I just wanted to know if anyone checked.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, sorry, he didn't hear you. That's all right.
Oh, it's okay. I just wanted to know if anyone checked to see if the collection website or any of the reports it creates are 508 compliant or, accessible.
ADA compliant. Did we run the compliance check?
Can't answer that, but we will check.
No. Yeah, I don't think we answered. Right now, we were just really in the stage of just trying to get it tested to get it up, but that could certainly be something we can review, I think, before the final report.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good question, Commissioner. Good question. If anybody ought to get it right, it'll be us. Any other questions, commissioners? Because this was technically presented as an action item for today's agenda. However, I'm recommending that we postpone this, the final approval. This is supposed to be a final approval until all the commissioners have had a chance to review the final report, which is supposed to be coming out. Do we have a date certain on issuing the final report, Casey?
The month.
End of June?
Yes.
Okay, so June 30th. What time of day? Just playing. Just anyway. I'm used to specifics, but so June 30th we'll get the final report. So doesn't make much sense trying to vote on a final report when we haven't reviewed a final report. So unless there's some objections, I would like a motion to table this action item until the July commission meeting, given that we get it in a timely manner and those sorts of things. Any discussion on that ahead of time? That's just my personal recommendation because I can't see us voting on something today, but it is on today's agenda, so we need to address it. Commissioners, any thoughts?
I agree.
Okay, so I need a motion then to table this action item until the next commission business meeting.
This is Commissioner Tellez, and I make a motion to table that action.
Okay, thank you. I need a second.
This is Commissioner Gray. I second Commissioner Tellez.
Thank you. All those in favor of tabling this to the next meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, so that's the end of the action items. With that, we're going to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple items that I want to discuss that do involve discussion real quick. First off, we still have one more grant that we need to have an approval on for the fiscal year, but we've been a little delayed on that process. It's the Shirley Conroy Capital Equipment Grant. This is 1.4 million that goes out each fiscal year that we award to CTCs that send applications to purchase a vehicle or software or any other kind of capital that is used to serve the TD population. We just had the deadline of those applications on Friday. Now, historically, we've done this through a subcommittee, similar to the way the ISD grant works, but this grant is a little less complicated, say, and not as much involvement or detailed discussions as you would see in the ISD grant side. Commissioner Knight is the chair of that subcommittee. We've talked with her. She wasn't able to make today's meeting, but our staff, because of the fact that now that the commission is shifting with new board members, and we are trying to get this thing moving, we've talked about presenting here today as waiving the subcommittee process and just having the staff recommend projects similar to kind of like the way we listed, but not as complicated of an options for this grant at the July meeting, to have that basically be the commission as a whole discussing it, as opposed to having a subcommittee and then a commission. This is a grant that does not have, generally speaking, tough, controversial type decisions, but it would help us streamline our process to be able to get the reviews of the applications, put in our recommendations, send you all the spreadsheet, and you have a chance to read through it, as opposed to having the subcommittee. It might drag down that process a little longer. Our goal is we want to get these approved in July so that the CTCs that get that award can start going ahead and purchasing those vehicles or capital. As many of you know, we've had challenges in the last few years with this because of supply chain shortages. So a lot of our grant recipients have had where they put their order in and it doesn't even come in until many, many months, beyond 12 months even. Although it's getting better, we still see some of these as challenges. So the recommendation that we have as staff is that you as a commission, it's up to you. We could either do a subcommittee, which would meet sometime in June, at the end of June, or what we would recommend is to waive that subcommittee and have it go present straight to the commission for July vote. So are there I'll kind of stop there to see if you have any questions, thoughts on that. And Commissioner Knight has said this is what she would prefer too. So we consulted with her on that.
Yeah, and Director Darwin and I spoke about this. I mean, given the greatly reduced variability, meaning controversy or decision making has to occur in this, I was open to it. And then secondly, the lead time, the procurement time is, I just want to get it in people's hands as fast as possible so they can so the population can benefit. And it will be an action item for us to vote on at the next meeting. So this is not a deferral of the right to approve. This is just simply changing the process slightly to accommodate a compressed schedule. So does anybody have any objections to that in general? This is just an informational item discussion.
Since we have some new members, you want to give them an idea of what will be presented to them, just like this one? So they can
maybe
have
outline, maybe David outline, what Shirley Conroy covers in, generic terms.
and how it will be presented.
So it would be similar to the spreadsheet that you see in the packet, how you have the spreadsheet. I want to say it's pages in the PDF. It's page 17 through 21, where you have the CTC's name, a description about what they're proposing, requesting funding for, the amount that they're requesting, and then it would be staff recommendations as opposed to subcommittee recommendations on whether the project should get approved, as requested, whether the amount should be modified or whether it should not be considered. So we would list those to you all. And if you so wish, we can also give you the applications as a whole to read through. That's your prerogative as commissioners. You can have that information. But the subcommittee is usually made up of one commissioner, in this case, Commissioner Knight. And historically, it was the three advisors. So we would have Kent from APD, Krista, Elder Affairs, and I think we had Sherry. Was it DCF was on it, or was it and we had DOT also.
DOT was on it.
DOT. So it would, all those members are represented here on the board now, and as voting members. So it would be the same, pretty much the same people discussing it. It would just streamline the process of having it presented to the full commission, as opposed to having to do a subcommittee, getting all the information together for that, doing a public notice for that, and then having to turn around and do it again for the July for the full commission to discuss it. So for the sake of the compressed time, as the chair said, that is the reason why we're recommending this year to waiving that subcommittee.
Yeah.
So did that answer your question?
Yeah, that helped.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to ask a clarifying question because I know historically the subcommittee, there was a lot of coordination with the FDOT for programs, and other funding sources. And so there was a lot of coordination on, especially some of the big capital purchases, vans and buses. And so there was a lot of dialogue that occurred to make sure that, we were distributing the funds and everyone's getting, due consideration. So how is that going to occur if FDOT is not involved in the screening of the grants? Because they're going to see the final report, but how is that coordination going to occur? Because to me, that was the big coordination piece, because they're getting, they're distributing funds of their own to the same agencies. And so that was always a good interaction of sharing of information there. So.
We would, and Karen and Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can still, as staff, we would still be coordinating with the transit office at DOT on these applications that would be part of consideration as part of the recommendations to you all as a board. So we the staff could still work with DOT. It would just be that it would be presented to the full commission for discussion, as opposed to a subcommittee and then the commission. Yeah, so they did say yes in the audience. They were saying correct.
Okay, yeah. Let the record show their heads nodded. So no, so if we take this route, my request is for the July meeting that we add enough granularity to the meeting packet and to the or let me use a Casey word. Can we add more disaggregate data to the report so that we can, educate and inform ourselves without the benefit of the subcommittee doing that for us. So that would be my ask. There'd be enough clarification to maybe understand that coordination, has been coordinated, those kinds of things. That's all. That it just may clarify and streamline the July meeting if we can get the commissioners can get that a little bit more data in advance. That's all.
I think we can accommodate that.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners got a problem? Again, this is just a discussion at this point in time of taking this process tweak. We hopefully schedule allows the future that we would preferred method is the subcommittee method, but it's just a timing issue right now.
This is Commissioner Carter. I just have a question. The last time that this particular grant, I think, was reviewed, I was on extended leave, so I wasn't the representative from the department looking at it. With large equipment purchases, usually, at least with the state, it's an ITB, so a bid, an invitation to bid, it's value versus like quality and value, like you would with an RFP. So in these applications, are they expressing their need, why they need this equipment, what the purpose is, and then the best value, or is it more in depth than that?
Does someone on the staff want to talk about the app? What's the criteria basically reviewed in the application on the specifics of their request?
Generally, it's based on need. And then they also provide us with a quote where they've got the quote from, in your question to the IFB, or, some type of a proposal process. We really encourage them to purchase those large pieces of equipment like vehicles through already procured processes. Like DOT has a process in place where they buy the vehicles. And so we encourage them to go ahead and buy through that TRIPS program, so it kind of shortens that time period up as well. But then there are some things like the software or cameras on vehicles and that type of thing. Some of the cameras right now are on the state procurement contract, but we also have them provide us with quotes to support their application.
State term contract they can use.
They can use the state term. If there are things they could buy through Respect or Pride, they could do that. If they buy off the DOT TRIPS program, they can do that. We've had some buy through their own county's procurement process, even through some sheriff's offices for some of the vehicles, some of the vans, that type of thing. So we try to make sure that they comply with 287 with the procurement practices. Does that help?
Yeah, if we are going to forego a subcommittee that does a deep dive into it, I just wanted to know what we were really looking at and that there was accountability on the other end.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't buy little things.
Right.
We're only buying, capital equipment type of things, investments. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? If not, then that we'll adopt that approach. Now, Director Dharma, in the interest of time, we've got 3.5 minutes left. On the second item that you were going to mention, I would suggest that staff just reach out to the commission about picking a date. I think you just pick a date and, you know what I mean? Next
It seems like
commission
everyone
meeting.
is saying, so far I've talked to, it seems like July 17th was the best date, but we can confirm that this week and send that out to folks.
Yeah, just in the interest of time, it probably wouldn't be good to go through everyone here and try to figure all that out. But so yeah, I would go with July 17th and see if anyone has an exception. You could reach out to them or they can reach out to you. So let's go to anything else.
No, I think I'll save the other information for the July meeting because that's not time sensitive. But just as long as we got that square on the subcommittee process, I think we're good here. So
great, got it. Thank you. With that, any commissioners want to report out? And for the new folks, this is just your opportunity to talk about any new or upcoming events that may affect our mission here. General, things you're going to, events that, may be of interest, just anything that's in your personal, professional realm that may be relevant to our conversation.
I can provide a couple updates if it's helpful for post-session from an agency lens. I mentioned in the beginning our mission, and we are focused on our mission because we serve about 61,000 individuals across the state, providing a variety of services, therapeutic, social, medical, behavioral services. We operate what will be July 1, a budget of about $2.6 billion. And what we are focused on moving forward is pretty straightforward, empowering individuals to thrive. And to be able to do that, we know, again, everyone is different. Everyone's goals are dynamic and needs change throughout your journey in different stages of life. And so the need to create multiple pathways only makes sense when you're working with people, right? So speaking to that, highlighting a couple of things post-session, legislative session from a policy lens, we were able to get some legislation across the finish line and signed into law by the governor that really inherently describe what was Hope Florida, which is a program spearheaded by the First Lady that we launched this past September. Some of those core key components of that program, helping individuals to navigate government, helping individuals to be connected with their local communities, and all focused on the goals that individual has that are customized to them, and then activating the Rolodex of resources that are available at the community level and across the state and the federal level too, if that's necessary. Inherently making those navigation of services inherent to the way that we serve anyone who raises their hand and seeks assistance, regardless of eligibility or any sort of kind of bureaucratic box, right? People just know they need assistance. They don't know the ins and outs of eligibility, nor should they. And so this navigational model, really making sure that is embedded in statute. Also as a part of policy, we saw that, services are being provided very well through the education system all throughout, and perhaps through Medicaid. Then you graduate high school, now what, right? And so helping to set someone up for success in that transition to adulthood, the legislature has enabled us to begin the creation of an adult pathways waiver with our partners at ACA. There's a lot of steps before that would come into play, but what we're trying to accomplish there is, one, again, setting someone up for success when they are graduating high school, and focusing on empowerment and independence. So those skills that would help to do that, again, employment, transportation, right? So we're really excited and look forward to continuing those conversations here. There were some timeframes and some nuances that would enhance the end user experience. So making sure that when someone says I'm in crisis, we move as such, making sure that we have more clear connection points to apply for services. So think an online portal. And then one thing I wanted to highlight to wrap up on the policy side was the transfer of a business program that was previously at Department of Commerce over to the agency. We're excited about that because the focus in that program is to connect job seekers with job creators, right? And again, transportation is going to come into that conversation. From a budget lens, I'm really appreciative of the governor and the legislature throughout this entire highlights that I'm going over, but the tax package in particular. There was a tax credit that was focused on serving individuals and hiring individuals with unique abilities. And so that is a tax credit for employers, $1,000 per individual that is hired. Of course, there's some nuances around that. Happy to provide more information there. And then from a budget lens, just to highlight a few that pertain to this conversation here today, is expanding the work that we're doing with Department of Children and Families aimed at serving individuals with a dual diagnosis, so developmental disability diagnosis and a mental health co-occurrence, investing into teaming models, mobile response teams that we know that work, the outcomes are there, doubling down on those by adding a subject matter expert that has that developmental disability background and to help informing that teaming response, avoiding that Baker Act and spiraling, into a different system of care, right? So we're looking forward to that work and appreciate that partnership greatly. We've got some provider rate increases that we're incredibly grateful for, right? And then most significant on the funding aspect is we as a system received historic funding, the highest level that Florida has invested for the iBudget waiver, which is our foundational pathway that's probably most recognized when you think about APD. And we received for that $2.2 billion. So we're very excited about that. It's going to allow us to be able to serve even more individuals than we have historically. And we're just getting started. So we're incredibly excited about this conversation today, the partnership and just the wisdom that you all have to help influence that. And making sure that we are just our foot is on the gas at all times. So appreciate being a part of the conversation and able to provide some of those updates today.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, well, thank you. We will now move to our second and final, I think final, unless David squeezes another one in, public comment segment and closing remarks. Speakers are welcome to discuss any topic in the world. Again, all speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Do we have any forms turned in?
No, none on this end.
Anyone live in the room in Tampa?
Alive, but no one's standing up.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully everyone's alive.
Yes. Anyone on the webinar, speak up, hit the hand raise button. Anyone on the phone, hit *6 to unmute. Okay, with that will conclude our business meeting. We want to thank everyone who assisted with the logistics of getting the room and getting the folks there that need to be there. Our next commission meeting, again, we'll tentatively say July 17th. We'll get more details out. If that doesn't work for you, reach out to David or staff and we'll have that conversation. At the next meeting, we also will be partnering with FPTA to host our annual training conference in West Palm, which is in September. With that, I just want to say thanks again for the new commissioners. Thank you for jumping right in. It's what's called the immersion technique. You just jump in. That's what they teach languages, foreign languages with now, immersion. We're not going to speak in the other language. It's just the new language. So thanks for being available and for your commitment to the commission. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner
This is
Carter. I
Commissioner
motion to
Barrios
adjourn.
with the motion.
Okay, I got Commissioner Barrio with a motion. Can I get a second?
This is
And
Commissioner
this-
Carter. I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay, and you can stay there. Okay, thanks, folks. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.